Hi everyone, welcome to Java Techie. As a developers, we often get to experiment with Docker, but remembering all those Docker commands can be a tough job, isn't it? That's why I am making this Docker command cheat sheet video to make it easier for you. So in this tutorial, I will show you the essential Docker commands with practical examples. This will help you get better at managing the containers and familiar with all the Docker commands. Okay, alright. So without any further delay, let's get started. Before I start this tutorial, I am assuming that you have some basic understanding of Docker. If not, don't worry. You can go to my YouTube channel and check for the playlist called Docker. There you can understand the basic of Docker, what is Docker, why do we need Docker in real time, and their commands. Okay, so I'll share this link in video description for your reference. Now let's circle back to the context. So I have created one simple Spring Boot application where I have defined two REST endpoints. One will return the string messages and other one will return the list of user object. Okay. So what we want to do? We want to run this application user service in Docker container. Okay. So for that, the first step, you need to build Docker image of your application. So to build a Docker image of your application, the first thing you need a Docker file. Okay, so I have created a simple Docker file here. If you check the command I have defined or the instruction I have defined in this Docker file, I am using the OpenJDK 17 as a dependency to run my user service application. Then I have just created one working directory called app. Then whatever the jar of my application, I am copying from the target to this particular directory, working directory what I created here. Then I want my application to run on port 9191. Okay, my application will run in 9191 port in container, and then I am giving the command to execute my jar. Okay, this is the simple thing you need to define in your Docker file. Now once you have the Docker file, the first step you need to do, build Docker image. This is the first step we need to perform. Okay, so to build a Docker image, make sure first you need to start your Docker desktop on your machine. It must need to up and running before you execute any Docker specific command. Okay, so once it is up and running, then you can go to the terminal. I'll go to the terminal here. Then you need to trigger the command to build a Docker image or to Dockerize your Spring Boot app. So the command is very simple. You just need to trigger Docker build. Then what is the target? What is the name of your image you want to keep? Let's say I want to keep the image name as user app. Okay, and what is the tag you want to assign to your image? I want to define 2.0. Then provide the root directory. Just enter it. See, the command is very simple, right? Build the image, and this is what the image name I want, and this is what the tag. Now if you see, it will execute all the steps you have defined on your Docker file. See here, if you observe carefully, it created the working directory, then it copied the jar of your app to the target. All the steps is getting executed. Okay. Next, to validate whether the image is created in Docker or not, you can trigger the command Docker images. It will list down all the available image on your Docker container. Okay, just enter it. Can you see the image we created? User app with the tag 2.0, and this is what your image ID. Okay, and better if you'll go to the Docker desktop, here also you can visualize your image. Name of your image, ID of your image, what is the tag, when it created, and what is the size of your image, whether it is being used by any container or not. Everything you can visualize from here, as well as from the command prompt. Okay, now so let's do one thing. Let's note down these two commands to build a Docker image. This is what the command. Let me note it down. Now another command we execute, check available Docker images, and the command is, now what is the third step? Once you build the Docker image, you want to run that particular image in Docker container. Okay, so run image in container. So go to the terminal. To run the image in a container, you need to simply run docker run. I want to run it in a detached mode. Then I want to define the port. Let's say I want to define 9090 colon the port where you exposed your app. If you observe in a Docker container, I am exposing my app to run on port 9191 inside the container. So just define here 9191. So this 9090 is the host port. I mean, as a user, I cannot directly access the 9191 port which is running on container. Then how can I access it? By doing the port forwarding. I am telling to the Docker, hey, if I'll send the request to 9090, then please delegate that request or forward that port request to 9191 where my container is running. Okay. Then what is the image name? So for that, you can define your image name user app with the tag 2.0. If you want, you can also define the image ID. If you don't want to specify the name and tag, and if you want to start the container with your image ID, you can copy this. You can also paste it here. Not this one. Let me check the image ID. Let's run it. Now to validate whether it start the container or not, you can run the command docker ps. We can see the container is started with the container ID this is the image, and this is the command to execute your jar, and it started the container, and you can see the port forwarding here. Now I need to access to this particular port 9090. Then the request will delegate to the container with the port 9191 because that is what I am exposing here. Okay, simple thing. Let's copy this command and paste in our notebook. You can let's define here image ID. Okay, then to validate available Docker containers, or to just check, the command is docker ps. Okay, so we validate that our image is successfully run on the Docker container with this particular port. Now if you visualize the same in the Docker desktop, if you go and check the containers, you can find here, right? But if you observe, it is having some different name. But if you want to specify your own name of your container, that also you can do with a single change. Let's say I'll just define here, I will just define the name here. Okay, just define here my user app container. I need to change the port here again because already 9090 port is being used. So I'll just change it to some different 7070. Now if I'll run it, it started another container. If I'll just figure it out, docker ps, I must see there will be two container. Can you see here with the name which I define and with the anonymous one. Now if you validate here, you can see the container with your name. Now any of the container you can access. So let's say if I want to access this greetings endpoint, this one, I will go to the browser and I'll just type slash greetings. Can I see here? We are seeing the string messages. Now let me trigger another endpoint, which is users. Can I see all the 4 hard-coded user object? Now I am able to access using 9090. Also I can able to access using 7070. Can you see here? But if I'll try accessing using 9191, it's not possible, because 9191 is the port is being used by inside the container. To access the application from container, you need to go through the host port what you have defined while run your container 7070 9090. Okay, this is pretty clear. Next, if you want to stop any running container, then you can do that. Just copy the container ID. You can simply type docker stop, give the container ID. And if you want to start it again, you can do docker start, then container ID. Okay, it will again start. So let's stop one of the container. Now let me note down these commands. Fine. Okay, now let's move to the next one. Let's say I want to check the log of my container. So what I can do, check logs of container. You can simply do, go to the terminal, just do the, let me clear this, run docker ps. Only one container is running. If I want to check the log of this particular container, I can check docker logs, then give the container ID. Just enter it. You can see this is our Spring Boot app. We can see the startup log. Okay, if you have any log statement added to the application, if you trigger that, then you can find those logs inside the container. This is straightforward. So let's note it down. Fine. These are the simple commands we learned so far. Now let's go one step ahead and debug the container. So to debug the container, I need to open the terminal, or what I need to do, I need to execute a bash shell inside the running Docker container. So execute bash shell inside a container. So I need to log into the container and check what all things are there. Same thing you can verify from the this particular page itself, I mean this Docker desktop itself. So if you go here, and which is in use, this one, right? If you open this container link, you can find the logs. You can also find all the available files. Okay, can you see here? It created the working directory called app, and user-service.jar is inside the working directory. That is what we have defined in our Docker file here, right? So if you want to validate the same thing from the container itself, we can go using the command docker execute, okay, integrated terminal, then give your container ID. So if I'll go here, if I'll copy this is what my container ID, then I can simply paste the container ID. Then I just want to bin/bash. Okay, now if I'll do pwd, I'm inside app directory. This is what the directory we created through the Docker file. Now if I'll do ls, I can see the jar file. Okay, so let's copy this command for reference. Fine. Now let's check the another interesting command, which is docker commit. Okay, so why we need this docker commit? Simple thing. So if you observe, this particular container is up and running, this one. if you'll go here, this particular container is up and running. So I got some task to update some library or do some modification in the container, but I don't want it to be impact. Rather, I want to create another image from this running container. Do the changes, but that changes will not impact your existing container, running container. Rather, you want to create a separate Docker image from the container itself. How you can do that? That is where this Docker commit came into the picture. For example, let's say this is the running container, right? So what I will do, let me create some folder, and inside that I am adding something like some file index.html. Also I am adding some text. Now if I'll do ls, I can see home index some text user service.jar. So I will go inside the home. There also I'll add some context. Okay, so touch some different file, touch data.sh. Now if I'll do ls, inside the home folder I have added two different file, and in the app directory I have added two different file. Let's assume you did some library upgradation or you did some real-time implementation here. Okay, but to just demonstrate, I just created two different file. Now this file I created on the running container, but if I'll stop this container, these things will not be available. Okay, but I want these things to be part of a new image rather than changing in the same container. It might impact, right? This container is being used by some user. I don't want them to be stay in the conflict. Rather, I want to achieve the same thing but with the different images. So how you can do that? Very simple step. Just terminate this terminal. Just do docker ps. This is what my container where I have done the changes. So to validate that whether the changes is there or not, go to the container, go to the files inside the app. What happened? Modified. Yeah, we can see the icon modified, but it is not allowing me to check from here. But somehow you can see the HTML file, right? That's fine. So what I want to do, I want to create another image, the changes what I made in this container. Okay, so for that, what you can do, docker commit, what is the container ID? From this container ID, I want to create a image, let's say my app of version v2. Okay, something like that. From this container with the changes, I want to create this particular image with this particular tag. Just enter it. It created the container. Now to validate that, just do docker images. Can you see here? It created another image, my app v2, and if you'll check docker running container, it didn't start the container, right? We need to start it manually. So to start that, what I can do, to how we can start the container, simple, right? We already covered that. Docker run, then in detached mode, then define the port where you want to run, let's say 7171, and the port what we are exposing is 9191. The right part of the port must be the same what you have defined in your docker file. Okay, left part is your OS because that is your host port you are giving to forward your request to this 9191. Then just what you need to do, just give the container ID. Also it's good to specify name of your container, right? So name, give any name, my app p2 container. Okay, so my bad, I am just giving here container ID, which is wrong. We want to run the image, then it will start a container, right? So let me clear this. I'll just do here docker images, then I'll run the same command, but I need the image ID to be run here, not container. Okay, it started the container. Now if you'll check docker ps, you can find the new container. If you check here, it created the container. Okay, now if you'll go here container, and if you'll check the files, if you'll go inside app, can you find the folder we created, index.html, sum.txt? Inside home you can find data.sh, home.html. Whatever we created is available with our new image. Now validate same by login to the container or just open the bash terminal in the container. Okay, so for that what I can do, docker execute integrated terminal, then what is the container ID, this one, right, /bin/bash. Now if you do pwd, you are inside app. If you do ls, you can find these files, same what we just observed in the docker desktop. Fine. But if you observe your old containers, if you will go here, this one, still you can see the modified with the value, but once this particular container will be crashed and it will be restarted, then this information will be automatically removed from the container. Okay, but this particular containers, always you will find the script or whatever the things we added, because that is what we copied from this particular container with modifying something using docker commit. Fine. Now let me exit from terminal. Let me keep a note, docker commit, then container ID, then your new image name, new image with tag. Fine. Now successfully we validated all the command in our local about the docker, creating the image, build it, run it, and do the docker commit, start the container, stop the container. Lot of things we have learned. Now these images what I created is available on my machine. It cannot be accessible by others, right? So it means I need to store these images to some registry, some global registry or some public registry, so that others can access it. So for that what you can do, the next step, you need to push your image to Docker Hub. Docker Hub is nothing, a registry to store your images. But to push your images to Docker Hub, first what you need to do, there are few points you need to remember. You need to tag your images. The reason to tag your images, let's say I am developing something called user app. Okay, I am not the only one who created the user app and pushed to the Docker Hub. There can be millions of users who created the app with the same name, user/app. Then how can I identify which is I created? So I need to tag something like this, right? Now I can understand, okay, this particular user app is being this particular user. Okay, so this is nothing, your Docker Hub ID, unique ID. Okay, based on that you need to tag your images. Once you tag your images, then you can push it. So first step, tag your images, then push that images. Before that, since you want to connect your local to the Docker Hub, you just need to do the Docker login. First you need to log in to the Docker Hub from your terminal, then tag your images, then push that images. Okay, simple thing. But make sure to perform this push image to the hub, you must have a account in Docker Hub. So I have already the account. Just type here Docker Hub, then just open the first link, do the sign in. It won't take much time. It is 2-minute job to create the Docker Hub account. Okay, so if you observe here, all my images what I have pushed to the Docker Hub is tagged with the my Docker ID, Docker Hub ID, Java Techie. Okay, so see here, simple. Let's consider this Spring Agro CD app. Okay, I'm not the only single person who created this Spring Agro CD app and pushed to the Docker Hub. So there can be 100 users who created the app with the same name, but to uniquely identify the image belongs to which community or which user, it's good practice to tag your images. Okay, so we are good. Now what steps we want to perform? To push the image to Docker Hub, you need to do the Docker login first. Go to the terminal, just do Docker login. So already I log in before, so it is taking my old credential. So what I will do, I will just do Docker logout. Now if I'll do Docker login again, it will ask me to give the username and password. My username is Java Techie. Password I don't want to share. I will type it. Yeah, can you see here? Once you provide the valid username and password, you will see the statement login succeeded. Okay, once you log in, then just let me clear this. Just check your images, available images, my app and user app. There are two apps. Okay, so what I want to do, I want to tag my image first. So what is the image? Let's say I'll just define Docker tag which image you want to tag. Let's say I want to tag this particular my app. Okay, my app of tag b2 or the version whatever you can consider. 2, this is my user. Okay, this is, see, simple thing, Docker tag, this is the current image which I want to push to the Docker Hub by appending this ID. Okay, just enter it. So we are seeing the error because my app, so there is a hyphen in between. Just add it, just enter. Okay, now if I'll check Docker images, can I see my image with the tag? It create another image with the tag. Okay, so it means I successfully tagged my image with my Docker Hub ID. Now once you tag the images, next what you can do, you can push your image to the hub. So to push your image to the hub, the simple command is, let me type Docker images, then you can simply do which image you want to push. I want to push Docker push, what is the image name? This one, of tag b2. Okay, just enter it. It will take couple of seconds to push the images to the hub. And I have done some example before, so it is using their configuration. So you can see the statement here, right? It pushes the images. To validate that, what you can do, go to the Docker Hub and refresh this, and you can see these images last pushed less than a minute ago. Now if you open this, I have the single tag called b2. Now if I open the public view, this is completely public, so anyone can pull the images by using this particular command. See, to pull the images, I'll just keep a note here. You can run docker pull, then what image you want to pull. Similarly, to push the image to the Docker Hub, what command we have typed here? Push image. The command is same, right? Only you need to change to push. Okay, so push image successfully. And if you want to use my images, you can do the Docker pull, and this is my image name with the tag, and these are the version. So just give a try. just pull these images on your machine and run it and see the result. Okay, so similarly, if I want to use some other software, for example, let's say I want to use MySQL on my machine, I will search in the hub about the MySQL, and you can find there are supported version of MySQL. What I can do, I will I will copy this particular command, docker pull MySQL. Any images you need to run on your Docker container, come to the hub and filter it, and then go and run here. I mean, you can run from the IntelliJ terminal as well. I'll just run docker pull MySQL. It will take a couple of seconds because it will pull the images from hub and will be stored in your Docker container. I mean your Docker desktop, Docker engine, whatever you can pronounce. You can see here it is succeeded. Now to validate whether it really created the image or not, what I'll do, I'll just check Docker images. Can you see here MySQL with the latest tag? So you can push the images to the hub. If you need some software to run on your container, you can also pull that images from the hub. And here is the command. Okay. So these are the essential Docker commands which as a user or as a developer or as an administrator you must need to idea about these commands. And there are few hidden commands of Docker which I will cover in my next tutorial. So do let me know in a comment section if you find this tutorial helpful. Okay, and if you have any doubt, then just raise the concern in the comment itself. That's all about this particular video, guys. Thanks for watching this video. Meet you soon with a new concept.